What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Championship Series Cup, a brand new limited meta for this season, which seems like a bit more thought has been put into this meta than any previous limited cups, because there are 5 eligible typings in Ice, Flying, Ghost, Psychic, and Dragon, but there are also 2 banned typings in Dark and Rock, and there are many individual Pokemon that have been banned, like Alolan Sandslash, Galarian Corsola, Gelatin, etc., that likely would have been a little bit too strong. On top of this, Legendaries, Mythicals, and Ultra Beasts have been banned, and supposedly Shadow Pokemon should have also been banned, but at least at the time of recording, for whatever reason, they've not been banned. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it would be nice to get some clarification to tell us whether that's a mistake in the blog post and actually Shadow Pokemon should be allowed, or whether it's actually just a mistake in game and that eventually they will be banning Shadow Pokemon. But anyways, whilst they are still allowed, I'm running a double shiny Shadow backline with Metang as the Say Swap and Metagross as the closer. I'm also running Druddigon with Rock Tomb in the lead because a few people had recommended it recently, as of course it did get buffed this season but hasn't really been showcased anywhere else. Now there are so many teams in this meta that get completely bullied by Metagross if you're able to give it a shield advantage in the end game, and it just swept so many teams. Obviously if shadows were banned like they're supposed to be, maybe it wouldn't quite have the same nuke potential in that non-shadow variant, but whilst they're still eligible, I would actually 100% recommend you give this Pokemon a try if you already have one built. Of course if you don't have one built, probably not worth building in case they do ban it in the end. But anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What are your overall first impressions of the Championship Series Cup? Are you enjoying it so far? Do you think maybe a few other Pokemon should have been banned? What are your thoughts on Shadows still being eligible at the time of recording? Please let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Druddigon into Bronzong. So not the best matchup for me, but we do have access to Night Slash, so I'm going to stay in, fire off a Night Slash immediately, and then I will be swapping into my Shadow Metang. Night Slash able to connect, and now with the Fury Cutter damage, we get them into the yellow health range. Of course, they've got access to payback, Ice Shield, and they do full send. The opponent is actually still going to stay in this matchup, so potentially they don't really have a great response to Metang in the back, which means hopefully Metagross is also going to have a great time. So at this point, get a no shield, they full send the payback, but I've put them into range where Metagross can come in and go for a fully resisted Bullet Punch farm down before they even reach a Psyshock. So here, of course, we do have an energy advantage. The opponent is going to come in with a Glalie, which is also great to see that this Pokemon has some play in this meta. This Pokemon, in pretty much any other meta, is completely useless, but actually seeming to be pretty common in this meta. However, unfortunately for them, I can shield once and then go for a full farm down. So the opponent pops out into their final Pokemon, and Oranguru. This Pokemon is supposed to be the top dog of this meta, but Meteor Mash gets the one shot. We can Bullet Punch farm them down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. I'm going to see Claydol in the lead. So, not really a great matchup for me, but it is good to see it here. But the opponent's actually going to swap out into Dugong. So, the reason I say that's not a great matchup is because Druddigon doesn't really have that much fast food pressure anymore. Night Slash would hit for super effective, but of course, they could just debuff me with those Rock Tombs. But here, I'm going to no shield, call it bait, and they go for an icy win. The fact that they shielded the first charge move kind of implied that they would go for a debuffing move. So, here, going to go for another Psyshock, and we end up throwing on CMP. This point, going to no shield again. Unfortunately, they do full send the drill run, which doesn't quite get the KO there. If they did KO, maybe we come in and we fully farm down before they reach another charge move. But now, unfortunately, I will have to shield. We shield up the drill run. We get the full farm down. They did not bait this time around, meaning I am not debuffed, so I'm going straight for Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash does big damage there. We're going to swap back into Druddigon, and their final Pokemon is going to be Froslass, but they're actually on Hex. So at this point, of course, not taking much fast food pressure. We go for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb debuffs their attack stat, and they use their final shield. And when all shields are down, of course, we're going to save a shield for the Shadow Metagross. We can just safely shield up an Avalanche or a Shadow Ball, doesn't really matter. Go for a full Bullet Punch farm down, coming out with the Meteor Mash loaded. And of course, from this range up against Claydol, Meteor Mash gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. I'm going to see Druddigon into Medicham. So, Medicham I've seen a few times in this World Championship Series. It's actually pretty decent here. I mean, I've not really had any trouble with it. But anyways, we're actually going to swap at the same time as the opponent. However, that is not enough energy for a Flamethrower. So, I do no shield, just a Sky Attack. Absolutely fine with me. I'm now going to fire off a Psyshock. Psyshock, well, a second Psyshock here will be enough damage to get the KO. So, I'm going to overfarm just a little bit. Psyshock number 2 does take them out. out, and now they come in with a Talonflame. I'm hoping this second Incinerate will be enough damage to get the KO here, and it does exactly that. So of course we don't give them too much farm there. We can come in, we have the energy for a Rock Tomb, but I'm going to go ahead and bait with a Night Slash. Night Slash grabs a shield. They're going to fire off the Charge Move, and then I predict they're probably going to swap back into Medicham. So I wait for that swap. Hopefully we've just caught an Ice Punch onto Metagross, but they're actually on Power Up Punch, which is quite surprising to me. But anyways, I'm probably going to have to shield here. But what I cannot do is go for a full charge of the Meteor Mash, because then they come in, they farm me down, and it's game over. So we undercharge, and we get a simultaneous KO, and that is perfect for me. That's going to allow me to go for 3 Dragon Tails and get to back-to-back Night Slashes as they reach the next charge move. But Draudigon, you can see, I don't know why, but I've got a really attack-weighted one. I don't think it really matters. In this case, we win CMP. Of course, we get the unnecessary attack boost as well, just to top things off there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Draudigon into Drifblim. So, this is a bit of an awkward matchup for me because we are just taking a lot more fast food pressure than we are dealing here with the Dragon Tails, but we can go ahead, win CMP once again, firing off the Rock Tomb. They go for an Icy Wind here, and honestly, I'm not really sure why, but I'm going to go for a Night Slash here, just in case the opponent, instead of throwing, commits to a full farm down. Potentially, I get to 2 Night Slashes, but actually, they do just end up throwing another charge move straight away. They go for the undercharge there, so I'm actually going to swap out of that matchup and into my Metang, and we can outpace them to the charge move. Now with the Dragon Tail damage, Psyshock gets the KO there, and the opponent is going to come in with a second Ghost type. That is certainly not ideal for me, but we are very far ahead on energy. I'm going to farm up, throw just before they reach a, well, no, actually, never mind. This is not going to be a Cofagrigus, sorry, a Runarigus. This is a Cofagrigus, so we're going to throw back-to-back Psyshocks here. I tried to snipe them, but we actually don't quite get the KO there, and you're going to see it is also a Runarigus in the back. That's why I was getting them mixed up there, and unfortunately, because we tried to snipe, we had to use our final shield, and they're actually not even on Brutal Swing. They go for a Sand Tomb, but it doesn't matter. I'm way too low on every single Pokemon there, and so I just concede the match. But GG top on there into the next battle. You can see another Bronzong in the lead. So once again, gonna stay in, fire off that Night Slash as I can outpace them, and then I will swap there. I actually tried to wait one turn just to try and catch a potential Psyshock. Does not work out for me. They force in the payback, but this time they come in with a Skeledirge. However, they're not running Incinerate. They're on Hex. Once again, another Pokemon that typically does not run Hex. Running Hex here. I'm not really sure if Incinerate is not that great in this meta. Don't really know. But either way, we are going to no shield. They have farmed up to back-to-back Torch Songs if they're running it, and they definitely are. So at this point, we are now going to wait at the switch shot, come in with the Draudigon. They farmed up to a potential Shadow Ball, so definitely going to shield. The opponent is going to full send there. I'm now going to look to try and commit to a full farm down, but just barely not getting there in time. So forced to throw a Night Slash here. Night Slash does get the KO, and let's see. The opponent's going to come in with an Arctobax, and I can go straight for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, of course, going to debuff their attack stat. We now swap into our Metagross. The opponent swaps back into Bronzong, but we've got a slight energy advantage. I'm able to outpace them to the charge move, and of course, Meteor Mash gets the one shot there, and if the opponent isn't running Avalanche, I should be able to tank a charge move fairly well. The opponent just goes for the Icy Wind. We can tank that. They debuff my attack stat, but we get the full farm down anyways, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Draudigon into a Dusknoir. So, again, a little bit of an awkward matchup for me just because they are hitting for a lot more fast food pressure with the Astonish damage compared to our Dragon Tails. They then make a really nice catch there. So, I'm going to bank another Night Slash before swapping into my Shadow Metang. At this point, I'm going to no-shield this. I can actually no-shield 2 Aqua Tails and commit to a full Fury Cutter farm down. So, might as well do that. This is also going to give the opponent very minimal farm opportunity when they take me out here. So, I'm just going to go straight for Gyro Ball. Gyro Ball is going to grab a shield from the opponent. We do have a Night Slash already loaded, so I think I am going to come in and throw it immediately here into the Dusknoir. And the opponent, I think that might have been a CMP tie here. Night Slash. No, actually, never mind. They just did not throw straight away, probably waiting to see what came in. But now we can come in with that Shadow Metagross. I can just safely shield up a Brutal Swing. They're not even going to reach a second Brutal Swing. And even though they're hitting for super effective damage with the fast moves, I can safely shield here, go for 2 more bullet punches, get the full farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there, into the next battle, we're going to see Dusclops in the lead. So once again, seeing that Ghost type in the lead matchup. This time they don't really have that much fast food pressure, however, they do have access to Ice Punch, which is going to hit for super effective damage. So here, I'm able to grab a shield with the first Night Slash. Honestly, Night Slash doesn't do that much damage there, so I would probably recommend, if you are a Dusclops leading into Drydon, you probably just let the first move go through. As you can see, well, never mind, the opponent is going to double shield there. I'm thinking of a different game, I guess. But either way, we're going to no shield. Ice Punch barely does not get the KO there, so I'm forced to swap out, and I will outpace them to a Side Shock. Now, the fact that they're over farming massively here probably implies that this is going to be a Poltergeist, but I want to save my shield for the Metagross, so Poltergeist gets the one shot, but I put them into range where a single bullet punch should be enough to get the KO here, so we get a slight energy advantage here, and let's see what they've got in the back. They come in with a Alolan Raichu. Of course, they are resisting the fast move damage. They're going to fire off a Charge Move straight away. I'm just going to shield. They full send a Wild Charge, and then their final Pokemon is going to be Jumpluff. But Jumpluff, one of the bulkiest Pokemon in this meta, they can actually tank a Meteor Mash. I tried to swap, I tried to catch an Acrobatics, does not work out for me, and as a result, Acrobatics, even resisted, does big damage, and unfortunately, it's a simultaneous KO there. Of course, if we find them down just slightly sooner than that, we have an Earthquake loaded to throw into Raichu, but either way, GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, I'm going to see Oranguru in the lead. So we say swap into our Metang here, as of course hitting for super effective Fury Cutter damage, whilst double resisting the confusion damage. I'm going to full send a Gyro Ball here. Gyro Ball is going to grab a shield, and now the opponent is going to fire off a second Brutal Swing. At this point, we've probably put them into range where I can just go for a Side Shock here, and I'm going to do exactly that. Side Shock is going to not be shielded this time around. The opponent clearly core broken by the Metang, as they now come in with a Grumpig. Gyro Ball is going to connect. It does decent damage there. They do throw very good timing, winning CMP with the Grumpig, but that's fine with me. Dynamic Punch gets the KO. We can come in with the Metagross, get that Bullet Punch farm down. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Dugong, and again, we've got a slight energy advantage, so we should always be winning this matchup. We go for Meteor Mash. It's very likely that they bait with an Icy Wind, but I'm going to shield anyways. I kind of have to respect the damage there. The opponent does bait. They drop my attack stat, so I'm not certain if Meteor Mash gets the KO, so I'm actually going to bank the energy, swap into my Drydon. I really didn't need to do this, but at this point, they're actually not going to farm me down before I reach a Rock Tomb, so I might as well just go for the Rock Tomb here. And of course, Rock Tomb, super effective. It gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there, into the next battle, we can see Turtonator in the lead. So, a great lead matchup for me, but the opponent is going to be safe swapping into Runerigus, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what to do. I kind of need my Drydon for the Turtonator, but I also need it for the Runerigus, and we don't really put them into farm down range either here. So I'm going to stay in, and then I make another huge mistake. I don't throw a charge move, so now I'm going to be down 2 shields. What on earth am I doing? I then make an even bigger mistake. I thought, oh, that's Fury Cutter farm down range. Nope. Definitely not there, so what am I doing? I'm now down 2 shields. We swap, we allow them to swap out as well into the Turtonator. Basically, everything that could possibly go wrong so far is going wrong for me, and it's all my own doing as well. It's not like the opponent is just outplaying me here. I'm just being so bad right now. But we do have a Rock Tomb loaded here, so gonna go straight for it, of course. Gonna debuff their attack stats. So potentially, if the opponent goes for a Brutal Swing here, I might even tank this, and I do actually just barely tank it, and I get to the Night Slash. So if there is something weak to Metagross in the back, maybe we still have a slither of hope here, but it's going to be Dugong. I don't think I can tank a Drill Run, so I'm just going to concede the match there. Honestly, that might be one of the worst games I've played all season, but GG's to that trainer. Into next battle, going to see a Bronzong in the lead, and again, going to go straight for the Night Slash before swapping into my Metang. So the opponent is going to once again stay in here. So far, I have not been baited with a Side Shock. I feel like that is very risky. So again, they full send the payback. This time coming in with the Runerigus, but we are ahead on energy. So this is a lot more comfortable for me. As you can see, 2 Side Shocks won't quite get the KO here, but with the Fury Cutter damage, I should be able to farm them down. So here, going to go for 1 Fury Cutter, fire off another Side Shock, and if they no shield this, I'm actually going to come back in with my Drydon. The opponent's going to come in with a Celio, which is cool to see, but this should just be a body slam. I can tank this. I'm then going to wait one turn just to make sure the opponent doesn't try and swap and make a catch onto their Bronzong. Now we go for Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb dealing big damage. They can farm me down. They still got 2 shields, but actually, they don't have the opportunity to use them, as at this point, I can just go for a full Bullet Punch farm down here. Of course, I'm going to shield up the potential payback, and then the opponent likely going to reach a Surf up against the Metagross, but it doesn't matter, as I'm able to swap out, make the catch onto my Shadow Metang. Of course, Surf gets the KO there. One more Bullet Punch, gets the full farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. Going to see Oranguru in the lead. So, this is actually one of the first battles I did. So, I'm actually staying in here. Don't really know why. And that is why I changed up my strategy, because I could double resist the confusion damage here. Staying in, whilst, yes, this is technically a good matchup for me, as I can go for back-to-back Night Slashes and win the 0 shield scenario. They can probably just double shield and get ahead on energy massively. So at this point, I'm going to go for Night Slash number 2. Actually, we do land it there. So we come in with the Metang, and now I am actually going to shield this, as they fire off the Brutal Swing, but they come in with a Mud Slap Claydol. So not ideal for me, but we do have Fury Cutter. Gyro Ball going to hit for decent damage. Of course, they're going to shield the first one, but the opponent is going to overfarm, throwing on CMP. We win CMP with the Gyro Ball, and Gyro Ball gets them incredibly low, to the point where actually I think a single Bullet Punch will KO. We avoid taking any Mud Slap damage, and the opponent's going to have a Turtonator in the back. Typically an awful matchup for me. The opponent tries to make the catch there. It does not work out, and as a result, we come out with the Earthquake loaded. Earthquake, super effective. It gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent into the next battle. We see Dusclops in the lead once again. So, I think maybe this time they will no-shield the first charge dude. But anyways, gonna look to throw a Night Slash on the CMP tie with a potential Ice Punch. Night Slash is going to be no-shielded, and you can see there, they tank that very comfortably, whereas an Ice Punch is going to do a lot of damage to my Draudigon, but they actually swap into a Shadow Gyarados. So at this point, I'm going to go for another Night Slash here, probably going to grab a shield, and then swap into my Shadow Metang. Now, this is not a great matchup for me. I actually overfarmed by 1 there, because I didn't want to throw on CMP, but they end up throwing on CMP anyway, so that is very frustrating for me. I would have preferred to just go for the move immediately there, and then, of course, not bother shielding otherwise, because now they can still outpace me to another Crunch. Of course, Shadow on Shadow, Crunch gets the KO. Now, they have also overfarmed here, so I'm going to come in with the Shadow Metagross, going to look to make a catch onto my Draudigon, hopefully catching another Crunch, and I'm able to do exactly that. But unfortunately for me, they have a second Pokemon that is going to completely wall the energy from the Metagross. Meteor Mash still does big damage, but unfortunately, not quite enough there. And as a result, the opponent able to reach a Blast Burn, easily taking out the Metagross there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Talonflame in the lead. They're going to say swap into a Dragonair. So I'm actually going to stay in initially, going straight for a Night Slash. Night Slash actually going to grab a shield advantage. So now we come in with the Shadow Metang. Again, we can tank 2 Aquatails here. And what we're going to do is farm up to very close to back-to-back Side Shocks, to the point where I should be able to get to another Side Shock within 3 Fury Cutters. So here, going to fire off that Charge Beam. We are 3 Fury Cutters away. And this is going to mean if they come back in with the Talonflame, I can go for 3 fast moves, fire off the Side Shock, and still not take damage from the Incinerate, meaning we can't get off that Side Shock there. Of course, one Incinerate gets the KO, but we can now come in and still outpace them to the next charge attack, and we can go straight for a Night Slash. So Night Slash should get the KO from this range, so it grabs the final shield from the opponent. The opponent looking to try and make a catch there, but they swap into Altaria, and this game is definitely over. We can definitely just shield here, as the opponent is going to go ahead, bait with a Sky Attack. Don't really care. We're going straight for Meteor Mash. Altaria is bulky, but Meteor Mash gets the KO, and we can actually Bullet Punch, farm down the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Draudigon into Gyarados. So, a bit of a tricky lead matchup for me. I'm going to stay in this matchup initially, and I will... Actually, you know what? I think I might just play out the Zero Shield scenario. I should tank a Crunch here, and I can go straight for a Rock Tomb. Now, if they shield this, I'm going to be swapping into my Metang immediately, but they actually let that go through. We do end up swapping into Metang anyways, as they come in with a Bronzong. Now, at this point, they farmed up a lot of energy. I'm going to shield, and they do actually bait with a Side Shock. That is huge for the opponent, because now, I actually don't think I've reached back-to-back Gyro Balls here. First one, not going to deal that much damage, and they do actually force a CMP tie, which we end up losing, and this time, it is going to be the payback. So at this point, we are now down a shield. We do have our Shadow Metagross in the back here. So what we're going to do, try and commit to a farm down. Gonna swap out. Well, nope, never mind. I'm not going to swap out as we get one turn bring in lag. That is really frustrating. But actually, I don't think it will matter anyways. I think a Brutal Swing from Oranguru, by the time they do reach back-to-back charge moves, probably will be enough damage to get the KO anyways. I would need to live this. Brutal Swing does get the KO there. So unfortunately, I wouldn't have won that game anyways. But GG's to that trainer. Into next battle, we see Druddigon into Oranguru. So we know what to do now. We're going to swap straight away into our Shadow Metang. And again, the opponent is going to stay in initially and fire off a Brutal Swing. But that's fine with me. Of course, we're getting ahead on energy. Brutal Swing is super effective, but that's fine. Then I'm going to come in with a Dusclops. So I'm going to go straight for Side Shock here. Side Shock, going to be no shielded. And I do fire off a second Side Shock straight away. Now, the opponent does not throw immediately here, so potentially should have committed to a Gyro Ball. But actually, we do end up reaching a third Side Shock before they can fully farm me down. So we grab a shield advantage. At this point, we're going to come in. We're not going to bother shielding our Druddigon whatsoever, as again, we're going to commit both our shields for our shiny Shadow Metagross in the end game, hoping this is their best answer. They actually bait with a Shadow Punch there for some reason. Not really sure why. Unfortunately, we don't get a 0 turn swap there, but we can come in with the Metagross and certainly shield a Brutal Swing. Now, unfortunately for me, it looks like I'm barely going to miss out on getting a full farm down, so I will have to double shield, but we are so loaded on energy. They go for Brutal Swing. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Dugong. So I'm going to go for one Bullet Punch, fire off that first Meteor Mash straight away, and then here, I'm not going to bother throwing. This is basically going to force the opponent to try and throw immediately, making it much easier for me to make the catch. Drill Run gets the KO there, and that should be game over. If Meteor Mash doesn't quite get the KO, it doesn't matter, as I'm one away from the next charge move, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. You can see Glalie in the lead. Honestly, Glalie not that bad for the Druddigon because they don't have that much fast move pressure. But of course, I've got two Steel types in the back, so we say swap into Metang. The opponent trying to catch a Gyro Ball there, but we've now got a ton of energy. We can reach back-to-back Side Shocks before they even get to the crunch. So Side Shock number 2, I'm going to grab a shield advantage there. At this point, I'm happy with that, so I will no shield. The opponent goes for crunch, but it's a non-Shadow Gyarados, and as a result, Metang able to reach a third Side Shock, grabbing both a shield advantage and switch advantage. Their final Pokemon is Oranguru, and whilst Metagross is absolutely fine up a shield, we might as well come in with the Druddigon here. The opponent gonna fire off that charge move. They likely swap back into that Glalie straight away, but honestly, I just don't care. Once again, 2 shields and a shiny Shadow Metagross is going to very comfortably sweep this end game. The opponent gonna be farming up to a potential Shadow Ball. Even if they went for Avalanche here, I'm gonna shield anyways, as we are very glassy. But now, of course, we can outpace them to back-to-back Meteor Mashes before they get to back-to-back Brutal Swings. So the first one is going to grab that final shield, and the second one here going to be coming through as the opponent is going to throw a charge move, but it doesn't matter. Meteor Mash gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Turtonator in the lead once again. This time, they're going to be say swapping into Metang. So, I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to fire off the Night Slash immediately. And then I will be swapping into my own Metang. Of course, with that chip damage, I can guarantee switch advantage right now. Because, of course, I resist everything. They're also going to resist everything. But I put them into range where I can get the KO. At this point, going to no-shield once again. Once again, we do want to put ourselves into range where hopefully just a single Incinerate will be taking me out here. So, we're not going to give away too much energy to the Turtonator. They come back in with that Turtonator, and I'm going straight for Side Shock. Side Shock coming through is going to connect there, which is fine with me. They're going to swap into their final Pokemon, a Dugong, but we don't have a shield advantage this time around. I'm going to shield here. Likely they bait, and they do end up baiting with the Icy Wind, which is unfortunate for me. Here, I'm going to throw, I actually overfarm, throw just 2 turns before they do reach the next charge move here, and I did think, should I shield this? I'm not going to shield. They actually go for a Water Pulse there, which is quite surprising. I'm now going to look to overfarm. I'm hoping they just let this go through, but they should be shielding in this situation. Night Slash grabs the final shield. We don't get any boost or anything. So at this point, of course, I have to use my shield. I'm hoping the opponent swaps back into the Turtonator. I'm waiting for that swap for a potential catch, but it doesn't happen. And unfortunately, I do end up losing that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Gyarados in the lead. This time we're actually safe swapping into our Metang, and we're met with a Claydol. Now, not the worst case scenario for me, as I do have access to Fury Cutter, which is hitting for super effective damage, and we've also got Gyro Ball, which is going to force both shields here, as it looks like the opponent is going to commit to a full Mud Slap farm down. So that's fine with me. We can come in with the Druddigon. I feel like it's unlikely that they've got access to Ice Beam, so I will no shield this, expecting a Rock Tomb. It is the Rock Tomb, and now I'm going to shield up the next charge move. We're now going to farm up to a Rock Tomb of our own, then swapping into Metagross, going for the Bullet Punch Snipe there. The opponent should be coming back in with the Gyarados, but for whatever reason, they come in with a Shadow Hypno. Absolutely fine with me. We can throw on CMP. Meteor Mash gets the one-shot there, and this is certainly game over. The opponent, they could have 100 energy for all I care. It doesn't make a difference. We've got a Rock Tomb loaded. The opponent recognizes that, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's to opponent there into the final battle of this video, leading into Altaria. So, I'm actually going to swap out of this matchup, swapping into my Shadow Metang, and we will throw a Psyshock just before they reach that first charge move. Psyshock is going to two-shot them there, which is why I don't go for Gyro Ball, which would hit for harder damage. But anyways, going to shield. The opponent is going to full send a Flamethrower. Fine with me. Now I'm going to overfarm, going for another Psyshock here. Psyshock grabs a shield, and the opponent continuing to overfarm, allowing me to reach yet another Psyshock. Psyshock grabs both shields from the opponent. I did think about swapping and trying to catch a Flamethrower onto my Druddigon. You can see I did actually try that. I don't know why it didn't go through, but either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm coming in with the Druddigon, and the opponent comes in with a Grumpig. So here, I'm going to go straight for Night Sash. Night Sash is going to hit for super effective damage, and we actually get the boost. And you know what? I wasn't going to shield here, but now, since we got the boost, it's almost compulsory to shield, go for the full farm down there. Let's see what they've got in the back. The opponent waiting at switch clock. They are going to come in with a Celio, and we are boosted. We've got access to Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb, super effective. It gets the one shot, and one Dragon Tail likely gets the KO there, so the opponent just concedes the match. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.